Today I'm having wontons. Um, so in America, in Chinese restaurants in America, wontons are kind of considered like it's like a side dish, like an appetizer. You get wonton soup, and it'll have like three or four wontons in a little bit bowl of soup or something. Um, that's a common dish in China, but it's a meal. Like wontons aren't for some there's no like association with them being an appetizer. Like you get a lot more. So like this thing, what I've got, a standard order from this restaurant is 10 wontons, which is like a meal. Um, you can have it with soup. This restaurant, no matter how you order it, always sends you a thing of soup to go with it. I'm not gonna have the soup today. I'm having a different way, but you can see this says wonton soup. So in Chinese, wonton. So wonton, the English word wonton comes from the Chinese word, but the Chinese word is called huntun. This is huntun. This one can also be pronounced dun, depending on I think region. So some people say huntun and some people say hundun. But both of those are like correct pronunciations, just depending on. I don't fully understand when you're supposed to use one or the other. It just seems like it's randomly based on what you want to use. So they might just both be correct. However, today and then what the other rest of that said was tang. The other character was tang, which means soup or broth. But I didn't really feel like having soup today. So what I'm having instead is called麻酱拌馄饨. So this is kind of a sesame paste sauce called Majiang. Ma is from zhima, which is sesame, and jiang means sauce. So Majiang is like a type of sesame sauce. And so this is also a common way to have wontons. You can just pour the sesame sauce over it and kind of mix it all together. So that's where that ban, again, I've had several dishes now, I think, that use that ban term. Something ban something. It just means you're putting something on top of something and then mixing it all together. So they have this. This is kind of similar to like a tahini type of sauce. It's a bit runnier. I would just, if I was gonna like have to translate it to like an English word, I would just call it Chinese tahini. It's not the same as what people are like actual tahini, the sauce called tahini. But it's a very similar kind of preparation. It's a watered down sesame paste that has it's got sesame flavor. It also has a good bit of vinegar in it. It's got kind of, I can like when you're smelling it, it's got quite a soury vinegar flavor as well. So it's like kind of sesame paste mixed with vinegar. So it's got a bit of a bite to it. In my opinion, it tastes really good. I quite like this sauce. It's very popular here in China for all sorts of things. And this is just one of those things. But you get all kinds of like I think in a previous video I had Majiang ban mian. So that was the same kind of sesame sauce. That was a slightly different one because that one was from Chongqing, and this is the northern style. That was the Chongqing style majiang, and this is the northern style, which is they're almost identical, but there's slight differences. And then you get like a big wonton, and it's covered in sauce. To me, I really like how the sauce, it's a very creamy kind of texture because of the sesame paste. So it just kind of really coats everything very well. The preparation of wontons here is pretty much the same as you would get back in America, like at a Chinese restaurant in America. However, there's just a lot more options, right? So in America, you don't really think about what's the filling in the wonton. You just buy wonton soup and it just has some kind of like usually a ground pork filling. In a Chinese restaurant, it'll be a restaurant that specializes in wontons usually, that does wontons. And they'll have a ton, just like with dumplings, you can get a ton of different fillings. Meat fillings, veggie fillings, seafood fillings, all kinds of different like fillings. The one I'm eating today, which is one of my favorite ones, is called鲜肉 Yumi. So Xianro means fresh meat. Xian just means fresh, and ro means meat. In this instance, this ro means pork, right? Generally, ro is pork. If you just say meat, it means pork. And then yumi is corn. So this has just ground pork with corn. And that's the filling, is just ground pork with corn. And I quite like that. The corn adds a little bit of sweetness to the saltiness of the meat. And then the sauce has a kind of nutty and slightly sour vinegary flavor. And I think the combination of all those flavors kind of mixes well in your mouth. Some other common flavors or fillings for wontons here are anytime it's got pork, it'll just be called xianro and then something. So like this is xianro yumi. Another common one is xianro chinsai, which is pork and celery. Xianro baicai, which is pork and cabbage. Xianro swansai, which is pork and pickled cabbage, or kind of like the Chinese version of like kimchi or sauerkraut. Then another also popular here is shrimp. They'll have a very common one is like shrimp and cucumber. So like shrimp is xia, like xia honggua. So it'll be like little bits of shrimp with bits of cucumber. I'm not a huge seafood fan, so that one is a little strange to me, but lots of people like it. It's quite a popular one. There's also a common one that's just like 3 kinds of seafood mixed together, which is called san xian xian. I think it's xian xian. 3 fresh. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact name of that one, but there's a popular one that's got 3. I don't usually order it because I don't like seafood, so I've forgotten what the name is. But so there's all kinds of different fillings you can get with the wontons. Like I said, the preparation of the wrappers is basically the same as you would get at just a Chinese restaurant anywhere in the world. They might have a bit more sort of extra skin on them, like with this, but I've seen that at Chinese restaurants in America as well, so that's not a totally unheard of thing internationally. The other big difference here is that they are slightly, I think they're slightly bigger than you would normally get at an American restaurant. And there are just many more ways to eat them. So in America, you pretty much just get wontons in soup. So I suppose there's in America you often have fried wontons as well. In the north of China, that's not really a thing. I've seen it once at a restaurant that was a southern, like a Fujian Tsai restaurant. So the food from the Fujian city or Fujian or Fuzhou. Fuzhou is the city, Fujian is the province. But the food from that area, they I think do a deep fried wonton kind of thing. But in the north, that's not really a thing. So the American version of that probably came from the south somewhere. But there are so like at the restaurant I'm ordering from, this is like the biggest wonton restaurant I think in China. It's a big chain. Does it have the name on it here? Oh, that one doesn't have the name. On the so this is called, in English, it's called Mambo Wonton. In Chinese, this is Manbao Huntuan. And this is a giant chain all throughout China. It's probably one of the biggest sort of Chinese fast food chains in the country. But the quality of their food is quite good, so I quite like them. At this restaurant, you can get wontons in what they call just a plain soup or plain broth. They also have like a seasoned broth that they say is like chicken stock broth. To me, I've tried both of those broths and they taste identical, so I couldn't really tell the difference. But it has two different options on the menu, so they claim that they're two different things. Then, if you don't want it in soup, you can get it with this the sesame sauce, the majiang. They also have one where you can get it with a spicy chili oil. And do the same thing as this kind of sauce, just mix it all up together. So that's called like hongyo, or I think they call it hongyo, red oil. But it's just like got a spicy chili sauce. You could also get a dish that's half wontons and half noodles. And you can get that in soup, and you can get that with the same sauces as well. So that one, you'll get like some noodles and some wontons, and you can kind of mix them all together in a sauce or eat them separately. You can kind of do whatever you want with them. But I just thought I would share some of these. This is a Chinese food that most foreigners are quite familiar with, but not familiar with the way that it's usually eaten in China. That was the thing that struck me the most when I came here, was how there are foods that I was thoroughly familiar with that I associated with Chinese food, and then I came here and they had those foods, but they just do them totally this is a meal, right? Wontons are a meal here. It's not. It's often a breakfast meal, but it's not considered like you don't have like an appetizer of like 3 wontons in a little bowl of soup that you have before the meal. That's like a totally American way of having wontons. But the wontons that you have in America are fairly authentic in like how they're made and like what they taste like and stuff. So that's kind of a interesting comparison, I thought, between American Chinese food and Chinese food. Well, I'm gonna finish up these wontons, and I'll talk to you on the next one.